Hello my friends and fellow book nerds. If you are new here, I am Jordan. Thank you so much for being here, for watching this video, or if you've been here a while and you've watched a lot of videos, I appreciate every single one of you and I'm so thankful that you're here. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my recent reads. I'm pretty sure these were all April, so it's basically my April wrap up. Since we're in the middle of a move, I literally don't even know what day it is. Pretty sure these are all April reads. I have 9 books that I read, 1 DNF, and I read a total of 3,912 pages. I feel like that was a really good month. Plus, there was a lot of 4 stars and above books for me. It was just such a good reading month. Before I get into it, I would love for you to tell me in the comments, just say hey, tell me you're here, and let me know what your favorite book that you read in April was. Okay, these are in no particular order. We're just gonna grab and discuss. I will say though, before I get into these books, that there's one book in particular that dealt with a very, very heavy topic, something very near and dear to my heart. So there's gonna be a moment in this video that I've been bracing myself for where I'm gonna get very real and very personal, talking about something that I've never shared here, not only on YouTube, but I don't think in the book community really much at all. But this book needs to be not only discussed, but it's a heavy topic that I do think needs to have more attention. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know that there's going to be a moment in this video where things are gonna get very real. If you watched my April TBR video, I FaceTimed some of my friends and my sisters and they picked books for me to read. I did pretty darn good. There was only 2 books in my whole TBR that I did not get to. So one of the books that I finished, my friend Caitlin had picked this one for me. This is The Wall of Winnipeg by Mariana Zapata. This is the second Mariana book that I have read. I read All Roads Lead Here and I loved it. I've always heard that Mariana is the queen of slow burn, and that is so true. Which, in one sense, I really appreciate because the natural light. I'm sorry guys, I've got my window open and I can tell the sun is like going in and out of the clouds, so I apologize that the lighting is going to shift a bit, but we're here for the books, not the lighting. The benefit of it being such a slow burn is there's not really any smut. Like the very last chapter, I think it was, they finally had an intimate scene. I appreciate that. This one is a marriage of convenience type of a book. Our lead girl works for this professional football player. He is a grump. Honestly guys, I didn't really like his character. Like even at the end, he did a few things that I was like, okay, good job, bro. You have redeemed yourself. I can tell you really care about her. But overall, he's kind of a grump and I didn't really like him, but I still really liked the book. If you are not a very like character-driven person though, these are not for you. This book in particular did dig a little bit into some heavier topics of physical abuse and kind of some child neglect, but it was very minimal. It wasn't too difficult. Primarily, you're just experiencing this girl be his fake wife and navigating putting up with him, living with him now, but it was enjoyable. I think I'm gonna land at like a 3.75 stars for it, which is surprising because this is probably the one I hear talked about the most, but I just liked the setting and the characters in All Roads Lead Here more. Like I said, if you like a slow burn and you like a character-driven type of a story, then this is perfect for you. Next, we'll talk about the only DNF that I had this month. It was I Hope This Doesn't Find You. This is a newer release. It came out, I think, February. I was very, very excited about this one because it was kind of compared to being the new To All the Boys I've Loved Before, except that this girl wrote hate letters instead of love letters and then those got sent out. So I did start it and I got like 50 pages in. This is just my personal opinion. YA, it's not very often a hit for me. I just don't really love the teenage attitudes when I'm reading. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't like vibe with these characters. I mean, 50 pages in and I felt zero investment. I never do this, but I went to the last chapter of the book and just finished it and read it because I did want to see what happened. I'm not even gonna rate it. It was a DNF. I do think it's just a me problem, so maybe don't take my word for it. But if you are like me and don't love YA, maybe skip it. Moving on though to a YA that I loved. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is not a new book by any means. In fact, I'm probably one of the last people in the entire book community to read this book, but better late than never, especially if you're talking about this, because it was so good. I was shocked by how much I enjoyed this book. The lead in this, she is a high schooler, but I related so strongly with her. She loves romance movies and rom-coms, like grew up loving them. She gets annoyed by people pretty easily. Same. Like when I was dating growing up, I didn't date a lot, but when I did start to talk to a guy, within a month, I was annoyed. She calls it the ick. And I was like, yes, oh my gosh, I get that. Like the ick factor. I still tell my husband to this day that the fact that I have loved him for 14 years and I'm not over him is saying so much. I thought Wes, the boy in this book, was such a perfect male lead for a YA book. He was so funny and so sweet, and the two of them together were just a perfect rom-com YA story. She loves love. He acts like he's a little bit of a cynic. They fake date so that she can hopefully get the attention of the boy that she actually likes, but of course we all know what's gonna happen. And there's just so many cute moments. It was definitely like a 4.5 star for me. For a YA, that's all you need to know. Like that is saying so much. At some point in the month, I went and just perused the bookstore and I left with Dare You to Hate Me. This is available on Kindle Unlimited. However, the last few times I had been to the store and saw this cover, I just was tired of saying no to it, and so I bought it and I started it same day. Like, I never ever do that. I buy books and then they go on my shelf and who knows when I'm actually going to read them. But for some reason, I just was in a mood and I wanted to start it immediately, and I read this book in like less than 48 hours. The cover and synopsis just totally drew me in. It's basically a friends to lovers second chance romance kind of a story. They were best friends growing up and she had a lot of heartache going on in her home, and so she wanted to run away and he didn't go with her at the time, and now all these years later they end up at college together and just kind of rekindle their friendship and love for each other. It does deal with a little bit of heavier topics because our girl is a runaway. She does deal with some suicidal tendencies. However, there was nothing too graphic, so I wouldn't say like let that deter you. There was maybe 2 scenes that got a little bit more smutty than I prefer, but overall I still was able to really enjoy this one. Like I said, it was so bingeable, I could hardly put it down. And then right after that book, I mood read into another one that I'm so shocked by. This was probably my biggest surprise of the month, and that is Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy. I also binge read it and read it in less than 48 hours. I can't believe how much I liked this book. It is a thicker one, but guys, this book is New Girl meets Emily in Paris. I am so thankful that I saw another YouTuber, Ashlyn Kaylee, who is so sweet. You have to go follow her, but she happened to pick this one up and read it. That's what influenced me to just try it. I was really in the mood for like an abroad type of story, and this did not disappoint. I literally will never stop thinking about this book. It turns out they're making it into a movie or TV show, which is so exciting. But this girl goes off to college in London. She accidentally ends up rooming with 3 guys, and it is just such a fun story. Exploring London a little bit, so it's got like a really great setting. The characters are all so cute and so well written. There's a couple things in the story that I didn't like, which is the only reason it's not 5 stars for me, but it is like 4.75 stars. I just didn't vibe with like absolutely everything, but it wasn't too smutty. Elle Kennedy, I know, can get pretty smutty. This one wasn't too bad. She is in a love triangle. I love a good love triangle, and this one was written so well that even towards the end of the book, I was just like, oh my gosh, who is she going to pick? Like, I genuinely was on the edge of my seat. She did pick the guy that I like, but I'm not gonna say anything else, obviously. It was just really good. Like, I feel like it had all the fun elements that you want in a romance. Like, her dad is a famous musician and she's trying to get out from under that wing, like live her own life and not just all the stories of her dad and his fame and stories. I could go on and on. I loved this book. It was definitely the biggest surprise of the month. Next is the only 5-star read. I did have some that are close, obviously, but my 5-star read is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I am not going to get into the entire synopsis of this book because literally everyone is talking about this book. So I'm going to keep this short because I don't need to sit here and repeat things that everyone else is already saying, but read this book. Beyond just being my favorite Abby Jimenez, it is a favorite book, period. It is so good. For an Abby book, she used less language than normal. There's only one very mild open door scene. This story and these characters are so perfectly written. I related personally so much to Emma. She is such an empath. Like, so many moments she's just like, if you can choose forgiveness, choose forgiveness. As Abby always writes, there's a lot of depth to the story and real life human issues at hand. It's not just a sweet little rom-com. I love that about her writing because it makes it very relatable. However, even if you don't relate with the lead, it's just such a good story. I've seen a lot of people just raving over the male in this book because he is such golden retriever vibes, such a sweetheart, and so funny. The unicorn float scene on the lake, if you know, you know. That scene alone is worth the entire book. I just cannot express enough how much this book means to me and how much I loved it and how much I am telling you to read this book. You just won't regret it. Which leads me into the next very hype book right now is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I got an advanced audio of this book, so I was able to read it before it came out. I was able to get like my own personal, very real opinion on this one that now I'm sitting here like, is something wrong with me? Because I did not love this book. I'm so disappointed to say. I know everyone is a huge fan of Emily Henry. I've read every work from her. Her books, for me personally, have been either amazing or kind of flops. So I am not like a lot of other Emily Henry fans who are like, she's 5 stars every single time. I will say that her banter is amazing. I love her characters. It's just sometimes the plot, it doesn't hit for me. And with Funny Story, I'm very sad to say that it is only like a 3-star book for me. I have seen most people still giving it those 5 stars, so maybe take lightly what my opinion is. I just could not believe in their love story. So these two characters are brought together because they both got dumped by their fiancés. Because their fiancés, they love each other, so they kind of end up in this situation where they're navigating that together. They are living together because they didn't really have anywhere else to go. It ended up going into like a lot of other deep things. There were so many fun moments, and again, I love the banter, but I am a lover of love stories, okay? And I am pretty darn easy to please when it comes to love stories. And I just could not believe in their love. I really can't even put my finger on why, but it just wasn't believable for me. And there's actually only one other YouTuber that I saw recently saying that she felt that way. Destiny Sidwell, who is a phenomenal and one of the biggest booktubers out there. And I felt so validated to finally hear someone else say what I have been saying about this one, because seeing all these 5-star reviews come out, I was like, I'm the problem. You know, that is the joy of reading, that we all glean something else from things, and I'm just sad to say that that one did not hit for me. It's fine. You all can love that book. Beach Read is still Emily's best book. I will die on that hill. I am shocked by this, but I only read one fantasy book, and that was Spark of the Everflame. I did talk about this at length in a vlog that I put out, so I'm not gonna repeat myself, but I really liked this book. This one is beginning to trend. The 4th book in the series comes out in June. They are available on Kindle Unlimited. It was so good, and I have heard that as the series continues, they continue to be amazing. In this first one, you are following DM, who is human, but she's got these weird things going on, and kind of slowly finding out that she is possibly descended, and these descended are the people who have powers and abilities, and they kind of rule over all of the humans. The first book just is really setting the stage, I think, for her character. The first part of it, I was like, okay, this is nothing new here. This sounds like every other fantasy book I've ever read, but it did take a turn for the better, especially towards the end. Was just like, I devoured. I could not put it down at the end. It made me very, very eager to go into the second book. The male in this one, Luther, is so good. I have said it before here, and I'm gonna say it again. He is worth reading this book for. So if you are a fantasy romantasy girly, try this series. I really do think that if that's your genre and your vibe, there's not much to like not enjoy in this book. One of my friends, when I FaceTimed her, picked Crime and Poetry, which is a cozy mystery. I am in the process of moving and I already packed that book, unfortunately. I primarily listened to it actually on audio anyways, but this one was really cute. I am not a huge cozy mystery girly. When I read them, I enjoy them, but it's definitely not my go-to genre. However, they're such good palate cleansers when you just want something quick and easy to read. They're perfect for that. And so I'm so grateful that my friend picked this one and I finally read it because it had been on my shelf for far too long. It was probably a 4-star read for me. You're following this young girl who ends up going back to her hometown because her grandmother told her that she's sick and needs her to come help at their bookstore, which it is a magic bookstore where the books kind of pick the people, and I loved that dynamic of it. And of course then there's the murder and the mystery surrounding it. I was very gripped the whole way through. I really can't say anything for like, oh, I didn't like this about it. Overall, I thought it was a really good, easy, enjoyable book. If you're a cozy mystery fan, or even if you're not, but you want to like get into it, I do think that that's a really good cozy mystery to try. Okay, now for the last book. Let me just show you the book. Okay, it was Taming Seven, which is part of the Boys of Talmud series by Chloe Walsh. The first 2 books are Binding and Keeping 13, which follow Johnny and Shannon. And then you get into Saving and Redeeming 6, which follows Shannon's brother Joey and his girlfriend Aoife, I think is how you say it. These are Irish books, and so I'm always like going back to reference how she pronounces the characters. And then this one is the long-awaited and anticipated Gibbsy and Claire's story. Gibbsy is a favorite character in the Binding and Keeping 13 books. Everyone loves Gibbsy. He is Johnny's best friend. He is the goofball. He's just so likable. Going into this book, I expected a lighter story, which is really dumb of me because Chloe does not write light stories. Every single one of these books has dealt with something very deep and very traumatic, but I was so unprepared for this topic. This one deals with like sexual assault and child molestation. I do think that that needs to be something people are aware of going into this book because I had literally no clue. That's not a spoiler. I'm not going to share like who deals with it. It is kind of a mystery. Throughout, you can tell that there's something being kept secret. Chloe handles these topics very well. For me, as someone who has actually endured this type of stuff, to be able to read the book at all tells you how well Chloe handles these topics. But it was hard. But this is where I wanted to take a moment. Me sharing my story of abuse is nothing new. I'm very open about it, but I've never shared it in the book community, like on booktube or bookstagram. It just hasn't been relevant. This has prompted me to realize that it is something that needs to continue to be talked about. Very, very long story short, I was abused. Before I share though, this is not easy to put into like a public space on the internet. If you comment with something that's not kind or that's inappropriate, I will delete your comment and block you. But anyways, I was molested for most of my childhood by someone who should have loved me and should have protected me. That very person was the one who was hurting me behind closed doors. When I was 12, the abuse finally stopped, I think because the person was aware that I was getting older and more aware that their lies were lies and they couldn't manipulate me anymore, but I still like kept it secret. And so when I was 14, I happened to tell a friend who then was like, this is a really big deal, you need to tell someone else. We ended up in court against my abuser for 2 whole years. So now I went from childhood being physically abused to my pivotal teenage years of life in court against this person. It was just such a drawn out process. But all that to say, in this story, our person who was being abused is really naturally struggling, covering it up, not wanting to talk about it. And this is where I really want to shine some light that, first of all, if you've been through something like that, you're not alone. You are so far from alone, because the percentage of people who have been abused in that way is sadly so common, and typically is under your own roof, in your own home, someone that you should trust, a family member, ironically hardly ever a stranger. But I do understand what this character was going through. It's embarrassing. It can be filled with your own shame and guilt, and I think that's part of why people don't share when this is going on. I know for me, I was manipulated to believe that I would get in trouble, that I was to blame. And then there was also, for me personally, wanting to protect the person who was doing it, which is so twisted, but I loved and cared about this person and I wanted to protect them, even though I was an actual child. There was just so many things in this book that hit hard for me. So in one sense, this felt like therapy and healing, and I love that about a book, when it just hits you where you need it and relates to you so strongly that it literally feels like a therapy session and the quotes just heal you almost. It's crazy how books can do that. But with that being said, I do want to say two things. Tread carefully, please, with this book. Secondly, if you have endured abuse and you have never spoken to someone about it, it doesn't need to be like a, oh, I'm coming out and now I'm gonna press charges type of a situation. You don't have to take it that far, but keeping something like that within yourself does so much more damage than finally telling someone. And I get it, it can be really scary to tell someone. I know for me, I was a minor, and so I had to be protected differently, and I lost my family, like one side of them, because they chose to believe my abuser and not me, and that's really hard. But I've also spoken at events about this and had 85-year-old women come up to me with tears streaming down their face saying they wish they would have said something and not kept it inside their whole lives, because that's such a heavy weight to carry. If you're married and you have a really good spouse or a best friend or a church that you attend, tell someone. Like, you really can't fully heal from something like that if you're keeping it hidden, because that's so much more toxic to you. I'm available. Find me on Instagram and message me. Like, I will literally be there for you and talk to you if you just want to tell someone but feel like you have no one to tell. Granted, if you are a minor that happens to be watching this, at that point it is treated a little differently. You can't just like not do something about it. Anyways, so I'm sorry that that got so deep, but I'm also not sorry, because I do think it's a necessary conversation. Ironically, I read this in April when it was Child Abuse Awareness Month. Now we're in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and these two things go hand in hand. So sorry for that rant, but it felt time to share it. If you made it this far in this video though, thank you as always for watching, especially when you watch to the end. That helps and matters so much. I appreciate every single one of you. I love you guys. If you liked this video and you have not subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I am moving in the next couple of weeks, so I'm gonna try really hard to continue getting a video out every week. But there's probably gonna be 1 week coming up that I just don't get to do that. But I am doing my best, and I'm not going anywhere if I do miss a week. And I just, again, really appreciate you guys. I hope that your books are amazing, and I will see you in the next video.